She smiled as she turned the brand new key. To her, this simple click meant absolute victory. She had locked him out of his own life forever. Tossing his cheap suitcase onto the cold porch, she felt nothing but pure triumph. She truly believed she had outsmarted him and claimed the entire estate. Standing in the freezing rain, the exhausted husband stared at the locked door. He had paid for every single brick, yet now he was entirely homeless. She poured herself a glass of expensive red wine, savoring the taste of stolen wealth. She assumed he would just walk away in defeat like a coward. But her arrogant delusion shattered exactly 3 months later. Sitting in a cold, luxurious mediation room, the color drained completely from her once smug face. A sharp, intimidating lawyer slid a heavy stack of documents across the polished table. It was not a settlement offer. It was a brutal eviction notice. Her trembling, manicured hands clutched the paper. The house she thought she stole was entirely gone, swallowed by a massive debt she never knew existed. Sitting across from her, the husband adjusted his tailored suit. A cold, calculating smirk crossed his face. How did the ultimate betrayal turn into this absolute ruin? To understand her catastrophic downfall, we must look back. For 7 years, they played the perfect suburban couple. He worked exhausting hours to pay their heavy mortgage. Meanwhile, she lived in a bubble of absolute luxury. She handled the daily mail, controlling the flow of information while draining their joint accounts for personal pleasure. Blinded by trust, he signed whatever mundane paperwork she placed in front of him. He believed he was securing their future. Completely unaware of her silent deception, the real poison in their marriage was a flashy, greedy younger man. He was a parasite, heavily funded by the very money the husband tirelessly earned. She showered her secret lover with expensive gifts and luxury vacations. But to maintain this pathetic illusion of wealth, she desperately needed a much bigger financial source. Greed pushed her to cross the ultimate legal line. Late one night, she carefully forged his signature on a fraudulent quitclaim deed, transferring the house entirely. With a single fake signature and a corrupt notary, she legally erased him from the property. She thought she had pulled off the perfect real estate heist. When the exhausted husband finally arrived home, his key refused to turn. The heavy deadbolt had been replaced. He stood in the freezing rain, completely confused. From the safety of their warm, luxurious bedroom window, the arrogant wife watched him struggle. She sipped her expensive wine, thoroughly enjoying his pathetic confusion. He noticed his cheap suitcase thrown carelessly onto the wet porch. Most men would have violently smashed the windows in a blind, furious rage, but he was different. With cold, silent calculation, he picked up his ruined belongings and simply walked away into the dark, rain-soaked suburban streets. Settling into a cheap, miserable motel room, he immediately opened his laptop. He needed answers, completely ignoring the damp cold seeping into his tired bones. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he accessed the county's public property records. The harsh blue light of the screen illuminated his intense, focused eyes. There it was, a legally recorded quitclaim deed, supposedly bearing his own signature. It stated he had willingly surrendered his entire ownership to his wife. He stared at the forged ink on the digital scan. The initial shock rapidly evaporated, replaced by an absolute freezing and calculated anger. Digging deeper into their joint accounts, he discovered massive, unexplained cash withdrawals. The financial bleeding was far worse than simply losing the house. While he sat in that freezing motel, his wife was busy entertaining her greedy young lover on the marital bed, celebrating their stolen financial victory. The next morning, the husband walked into a deeply intimidating law office. He had no intention of playing fair against a woman who committed a felony. A sharp, authoritative female lawyer examined the printed public records. She possessed a reputation for utterly destroying her opponents in complex financial warfare. She traced the fraudulent notary stamp with her expensive fountain pen. A dangerous, predatory smile slowly formed on her face as she saw the fatal flaw. The wife had used the forged deed to quietly secure a massive new mortgage, desperately feeding her secret lover's insatiable appetite for expensive luxury. By forging his name, she unknowingly tied the massive, crushing debt entirely to herself. The silent strategy to absolutely ruin her had officially begun. The sharp lawyer explained the brilliant trap. To get cash quickly, the arrogant wife had taken out a toxic, high-interest loan against the stolen property. Because she forged his signature to bypass joint approval, she unknowingly tied the entire crushing financial liability exclusively to her own Social Security number. The legal strategy required absolute silence. If the husband contested the forged deed too early, the cheating wife might panic and cancel the fraudulent bank loan. Playing his part perfectly, the intelligent husband sent her a series of pathetic, begging text messages, pretending he was completely broken and desperate for mercy. Reading his desperate messages from her luxurious bedroom, the arrogant wife laughed out loud. She felt like an invincible queen who had flawlessly conquered his empire. Completely confident that he had surrendered, she and her greedy younger lover went on a massive, careless spending spree using the stolen bank money. They blindly purchased luxury sports cars, heavy diamond jewelry, and booked first-class international vacations. Within just 60 days, they bled the massive fraudulent mortgage entirely dry. Meanwhile, a forensic accountant hired by the brilliant lawyer tracked every single fraudulent penny leaving the account, silently building a bulletproof criminal case against her. The trap was now perfectly primed. The massive bank loan was completely exhausted, and the first devastating repayment notices were generating in the automated system. It was finally time to strike. The husband threw away his cheap motel clothes, stepping into a bespoke tailored suit, thoroughly prepared for absolute war. Oblivious to the danger, the arrogant wife decided to officially finalize the divorce. She wanted to legally throw him away and formally keep her stolen castle. She aggressively demanded a formal mediation session at a high-end law firm, aiming to rub her newly stolen wealth directly in his miserable, defeated face. The morning of the mediation arrived. She confidently strutted into the firm wearing her most expensive designer dress, dripping in heavy diamonds purchased illegally. She pushed open the heavy wooden doors of the conference room, eagerly expecting to see a ruined, weeping man begging for a few pathetic financial scraps. Instead, she froze. Her husband sat immaculately dressed at the polished table. Next to him sat the most feared corporate litigation lawyer in the entire city. Recovering from her initial shock, the arrogant wife crossed her arms and smirked. She foolishly believed her husband was simply bluffing with an expensive rental suit. She aggressively pushed the divorce settlement across the table. She loudly demanded full ownership of the luxury estate, acting like a conquering queen demanding absolute surrender. The husband remained completely silent, staring at her with cold, dead eyes. Beside him, the intimidating female lawyer slowly smiled, a predator watching trapped prey. The sharp lawyer elegantly opened a heavy black leather folder. She did not speak. She simply slid the first devastating piece of evidence across the polished wood. It was a certified forensic handwriting analysis. Vivid red markers completely exposed the shaky, fraudulent ink, definitively proving the quitclaim deed was a highly illegal forgery. The arrogant wife's smug smile instantly cracked. She aggressively slammed her diamond-covered hand on the table, desperately lying that he had signed the document entirely willingly. The lawyer casually slid the second document forward. It was a digital, geolocated timestamp, proving the husband was miles away at work when the ink dried. The sharp attorney coldly explained the brutal reality. Because the transfer deed was heavily forged, her legal claim to the beautiful suburban home was completely void. Panic began to heavily set in. Her breathing grew shallow as she desperately yelled that they would simply sell the estate and split the remaining profit. The intelligent husband finally broke his long silence. With a chillingly calm voice, he stated he did not want the house. She could keep it entirely. The arrogant wife looked incredibly confused until the lawyer dropped the ultimate financial bombshell, a thick, aggressively stamped folder from a predatory high-interest bank appeared. The lawyer revealed the devastating truth. Because she illegally bypassed joint approval, the massive, toxic mortgage she took out was exclusively tied to her Social Security number. The terrifying bank document displayed a massive, unpayable negative balance, heavily highlighted in bright red. It was a financial death sentence built entirely on her greed. The sharp lawyer informed her that the bank was already initiating immediate foreclosure. She had carelessly spent everything on her lover and missed the very first payment. The horrifying reality finally crashed down upon her. She did not legally own a luxury suburban castle. She exclusively owned a massive, inescapable, and criminal financial debt. Desperate and completely broken, the arrogant wife fell to her knees, pathetically begging her husband to help her pay off the crushing, illegal banking debt. He simply adjusted his tailored suit and walked away in total silence. Panicking, she immediately called her young, flashy lover, frantically begging for financial rescue. But the greedy parasite only loved her stolen wealth. Realizing the money was completely gone and a massive debt remained, he packed his bags immediately. When she arrived at her stolen suburban castle, he was already gone. He took her expensive jewelry, leaving behind nothing but empty luxury shopping boxes. Karma moved with brutal, terrifying speed. The very next morning, heavily armed sheriff deputies and aggressive bank agents arrived to officially enforce the immediate eviction. Her expensive designer clothes were ruthlessly stuffed into cheap, ugly trash bags. She screamed hysterically, but the legal eviction agents remained completely deaf to her tears. Exactly as she had done to her husband, she now stood shivering on the cold, wet curb. But this time, she had absolutely no escape. Watching quietly from the tinted window of a sleek, expensive black car parked down the dark street, the highly intelligent husband observed his total victory. He felt zero pity for the arrogant woman crying in the freezing rain. She had maliciously dug her own financial grave, and he merely provided the shovel. The divorce was finalized rapidly. Because of her undeniable felony forgery, she was legally stripped of absolutely everything, absorbing the entire toxic marital debt completely alone. Stripped of her stolen wealth, she was forced to work exhausting, miserable minimum-wage jobs, scrubbing dirty floors just to survive the crushing, daily financial pressure. Every single time a tiny paycheck arrived, the predatory bank instantly aggressively garnished her wages. She would effectively remain a financial slave for her entire life. Back in the beautiful, dimly lit law office, the brilliant attorney and the victorious husband clinked expensive crystal glasses, silently celebrating a flawlessly executed master plan. He confidently stepped into his brand new, stunningly luxurious penthouse. His wealth was completely secure, his mind was entirely sharp, and his dangerous enemy was entirely destroyed. She thought she could simply lock him out of his own life and steal his kingdom. But in the ruthless world of legal warfare, karma always collects.